Today on CJ Off-Road, we're going to show you how to increase the performance of your Jeep Wrangler. If you want to increase the horsepower of your JK and make it perform better all around, then today we're looking at this Airaid MXP cold air intake with the SynthaFlow filter fitting your 2012 to 2018 Jeep Wrangler. This MXP series cold air intake features a direct fit upgrade for all 12 through 18 JK Wranglers with the 3.6 liter Pentastar engine. It's a quick and easy install with standard tools, and it's going to replace your stock airbox, filter, and the intake tube. Now this is going to increase your horsepower and torque to give you added performance both on the trail and on the highway. It features the premium quality SynthaFlow air filter to give you a long-lasting air quality in the engine of your JK. Now today we're going to get it installed on our 2014 Jeep Wrangler. Tools needed for this installation: a 1/4 inch ratchet, 5/16 inch socket, 3/8 inch ratchet, 10mm socket, 11mm deep socket, 5/32 Allen key socket, 7/32 Allen key socket, a short extension, long extension, 11mm box wrench, 11/16 inch box wrench, a drill, a 3/16 inch drill bit, a hacksaw, a file, a pair of pliers, a marker, and a tape measure. The first step of this install is to remove the engine cover. You simply pull it up and then pull it right towards you and it'll pull right out. The next step is going to be to remove this factory intake tube. First, get this band clamp off, and then we're going to remove some of these bolts that hold the intake tube to this factory radiator shroud here. Remove this other band clamp and we should be good to go. Make sure you hang on to this hardware, you'll be using it later. With all those removed, we can now remove the clips on the airbox here, get the whole intake and the airbox off. There's two up front here, just pull them towards you. There's one back here on this side of the airbox, and then there's one way tucked under here that'll have to come off. And like that, you should be able to pull the top of your airbox off. Make sure when you pull the intake tube off, you disconnect the temperature sensor and just set that aside, you'll be using it later. Before you can remove the airbox lid, the crankcase breather hose has to be pulled off. To get the lower part of the airbox out, there's two little grommets that go in. You simply pull the airbox up and it'll pop out. Now make sure you hold on to your factory airbox. We're going to need to drill this out a little bit so we can make it work with our new Airaid kit. We've got the factory airbox out here and setting on the table. We're going to drill out these two rivets that hold on the inlet tube. That way we can reuse it on the Airaid kit. Once the rivets are drilled out, pull it right up towards you, and you can keep this piece. We're going to modify this here in a second. You can set this aside. With the factory inlet tube pulled out, we're going to measure back 3 inches and make a mark, and that's where we need to cut it in order to make it fit on the new Airaid box. With our lines marked, we can go ahead and cut it. We have the factory inlet tube up here on a vise, and we're going to use a hacksaw to get this 3 inches off. Once you have this cut, it's very important to get all these little debris and the plastic scraps left over out. You don't want this sucking up into your airbox and into your engine. If you go along with your finger, you can get most of it off. We'll use a file and really get it cleaned up. You're going to grab this bracket here, which is going to allow you to use your factory inlet tube with the Airaid box. Orient it in such a manner as this, and then we're going to set it right on there like that and use the number 8 small Allen key head bolts and put them through like such. We're going to put a washer on the back and a nut. Just snug them up with your fingers, then we'll get them tightened down. We're going to get this factory inlet tube on the new bracket installed to the Airaid box here. I'm going to use the provided hardware and go through each of the holes here. Just push it through lightly, then we'll put a washer and a nut on the back side. We're going to get these tightened up using an 11mm socket and an 11mm box wrench. Once you get that all tightened down, we're ready for the next step. To get the airbox mounted up, you first have to remove these factory 3 grommets, and we're going to replace them with the threaded grommets. With the factory grommets out, install your new threaded grommets. You're going to put the lip up towards you, and they simply slide into the factory 3 location. Now you're ready to install your new airbox. Go ahead and grab your new airbox and put this hole towards the driver's side of the vehicle and your inlet tube towards you and set it into location. Once you have the airbox in, go ahead and grab your hardware here. It's going to be the large Allen key bolts and get them started. I found it helpful if you get a really large extension, then you can put it in and get them started by hand. Once you have them snugged up, go ahead and ratchet them down. Using the factory intake tube, we're going to remove this temperature sensor here. Simply grab a hold of it, lean it towards the left, and then twist it out a little bit. Once it's broken free, you pull it out towards you. Be very careful with these as they're pretty delicate on the inside. We're going to push this over into our new intake tube. With the Airaid intake tube on the table, there's going to be two holes. This one at the threaded end here, you're going to put the temperature sensor into. Make sure that the locking pin right here is facing towards this little cutout. Grab a number 8 button bolt with the fender washer and go ahead and just get that started. Once that's snugged up, we're going to turn it over here and work on our crankcase breather hose. Grab this threaded end here and it goes right underneath and simply threads in like such. It uses an 11/16 inch box wrench. Simply slide it over and get it snugged up. It's a lot easier to do this on the table than it is on the Jeep, so make sure you don't skip these steps. Just get that snugged up, should be good to go. Before we take the intake tube off the table, we're going to install the couplers. Now this one that reduces it goes actually into the throttle body, so it'll go up towards this end. Make sure it's on nice and tight. And then this end here with the two little humps is going to go on this side. There are 3 different sizes of hose clamp that comes with this kit. Now these 2 larger ones are going to go on the end that goes into your air filter. This somewhat larger one is going to go into this reducer here, and then the narrowest one is going to go into your throttle body. Make sure you do that right, or else you'll be putting hose clamps at the wrong spot. We're going to get that slid over and then tighten it down. Once you have those 2 tightened up, you're all good to go with the intake tube. Let's start working on the rest of the Jeep. Before we get our intake tube mounted, we're going to mount up the bell mount here onto the actual airbox. That simply goes in behind and uses the Allen key button bolts to tighten up through the front. Get those snugged up, then you're ready to put the intake tube on. Before we put the intake tube on, we're going to reconnect this electrical temperature sensor here. And then we're also going to put the crankcase hose right onto the back. Simply slide one of these clamps right over top of the factory crankcase hose. Put it on the back of the inlet and then just apply pressure to both sides of the clamp and it'll get tighter. Now you're ready to slide the intake tube right onto your throttle body and on your new airbox. With the intake tube tightened down, you can now put the filter inside your box. Grab your new Airaid SynthaFlow filter, make sure the clamp is on it and slide it in. We'll put it right over the fitting and we'll get this clamp tightened down. Now you're ready to put the cover on. We're going to install the new aluminum filter cover here. Put the gasket on it first and make sure that this lines up properly before we put it on the vehicle. Make sure that the Airaid is upside down and this is the side that's going to go flush on the airbox. You go ahead and pull back the backing on this. Press firmly around the edges to make sure you got a good fit. Now we're ready to get it installed in the airbox. Grab the aluminum cover and set it up with the Airaid logo facing you, and we'll get one of the Allen key bolts started. Once all the bolts are snugged up, we're going to go around and tighten them up thoroughly to make sure that this gasket makes a good seal on the top of the airbox. We're going to get our coolant overflow hose tucked up out of the way with the included brackets. Simply slide it over like such. Clamp them down a little bit with your hand, and then we're going to use the included 6mm bolts to get them into the factory location. Grab another clamp and do the same for the other side. Grab your factory engine cover, flip it upside down, and then use these attached spacers to go in the mounting holes. These are going to keep the engine cover up and out of the way. That way it won't interfere with your new intake. With the engine cover installed, that completes your installation. That concludes the installation of our Airaid cold air intake on our JK, and it looks really great, plus it's going to add a ton of power to our Jeep. The install time is about 2 hours, and you only need a few basic tools to get it done. Now you can find this air intake as well as many other great parts for your JK right here at cjponyparts.com.